Good afternoon, everyone. The Committee on Early Learning, Juvenile Justice, Public Education, and First Generation Initiatives is now called to order. Today is Thursday, March 26, 2015, and the time is 4:05 p.m. We have two agenda items. The first, one item here that we have is Bill number 47-33, COR, introduced by Senator Michael St. Nicholas, an act to establish a financial education curriculum within the Department of Education by adding a new Section 4110 to Chapter 4 of Division 2, Title 17, Guam Code Annotated. And we also have the confirmation hearing for the appointment of Mr. Francis G. Tovis to the Guam Academy Charter Schools Council as the accounting finance representative. Notices for the public hearing were disseminated via hand delivery and email to all centers and all main media broadcasting outlets on March 19, 2015 to meet the 5-day notice requirement, and again on March 24, 2015 for the 48-hour notice. I want to acknowledge my colleagues. To my left is Senator Mary Torres, Camacho Torres, and to my right is Senator Michael St. Nicholas. Good afternoon, and thank you, colleagues, for joining me. Okay, let's go. We'll go ahead and hear Bill number 4733. And I believe we do have Melissa L.G. Duenas, and we also have Mr. Rob Malay, who will come up and testify. Okay. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Okay. Okay. Since the lady asked you to go first, then we'll have you go first. Please state your name.
Thank you, Senator Underwood. My name is Robert Malay. I'm Deputy Superintendent for Assessment and Accountability with the Guam Department of Education. Good afternoon, Senator Torres, Senator San Nicolas. Before you, you have the written testimony from Superintendent Fernandez. I'm not going to go through and read it verbatim, but I would like to point out some of the highlights in regard to Bill 47-33, an act to establish a financial education curriculum within the Department of Education. We concur that not only our students would benefit from improved financial literacy, we also believe that many adults, just like ourselves, would benefit from improved financial literacy. We also agree that our students should be afforded learning opportunities, and we're very pleased to actually indicate and highlight some of those things that are currently in place within the Department of Education, in particular our high school curriculum and math programs. There are three specific subjects in the math curriculum that do speak to some degree of financial literacy, and those would be applied mathematics, and that description that's provided there is taken directly out of our course description book. Basically, applied mathematics 1 is the course is designed to familiarize students with basic job-related math skills and personal finance. They will explore algebraic and mathematical applications with topics that may include gross income, net income, record keeping, checking and savings accounts, cash purchases, charge accounts, credit cards, loans, vehicle transportation, housing costs, insurance, and investments. Applied Mathematics 2 builds off of the first course, and additionally in the math program in the high schools they have consumer math, and without going through the entire course description, that does actually address and teach students proportions and percent measurement, income, banking, and credit, buying a car, automobile, operating expenses, travel, renting or decorating a home, buying a home, building a home, graphs, probability, etc., and so on and so forth. Beyond that, we have business courses, and the business courses also speak to degree on what budgeting, investing, good debt, bad debt, keeping your money safe and secure, insurance, and doing what matters in your career type of topics. Further, we have partnerships and have have maintained strong relationships with local financial institutions that do provide advice and professional development and resources on financial literacy. We have specifically First Federal Credit Union has partnered with the business department at one of our high schools to incorporate the National Endowment for Financial Education. Our middle school and our high school students participate annually in the stock market game, as well as junior achievement. So we have lots of different opportunities for our students to gain some of the knowledge that is being suggested through the legislation. We also wanted just to remind and indicate that there are already measures that exist in order to change, add, or develop curriculum. 17 GCA gives the Guam Education Board the authority to adopt policies on the curricular needs of the school system. The Guam Code Annotated also directs the board to implement an educational program for grades 1 through 12. And so that mandate already exists, but additionally, within our Guam Education Board policies, we have a mechanism through Board Policy 327 that specifically identifies a mechanism that incorporates the collaboration of our teachers as well as our administrators when proposing any kind of change or implementation of curriculum. And the last thing that I did want to just point out, that when we mandate certain courses to be taken over a long period of time, it does actually have an impact on other courses that students may or may not be able to take throughout the course of their high school or middle school career. It could adversely impact them, as they may want to have taken a course, say, in pottery or something else, but they were unable to because they had to meet certain requirements that are expected of them. So, as it states in closing, we did recommend that the legislature allowed the board, the Guam Education Board, to review and determine how best a financial curriculum can be addressed, along with other mandates and curricular requirements that are set forth for the department. It'll allow our key educational professionals, our teachers, to provide that input on how to implement and what the need is and who has the expertise in which to address financial literacy. And I think that, good afternoon, Senator, sorry. I think I heard it best this morning when Senator San Nicolas was addressing a group of students at a Gupa Chamorro ceremony when he stated that he appreciates how at this time we are able to come together in the Anafa-Malik spirit and be able to sort through issues to make sure that everybody wins. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Malay. And I would like to acknowledge the presence of Senator Frank Uggan Jr. Thank you very much for joining us. Okay, and so now we'll have Melissa. Make sure I have your name right. Melissa Duenas. State your name.
Good afternoon, Senator Underwood, Senator Camacho Torres, Senator San Nicolas, and Senator Uggan. Thank you for having or allowing us the opportunity to speak with regards to this proposed bill. I am here representing the Guam Federation of Teachers. I am a member of the mechanism in place that Mr. Malay has referred to, the Joint Board Curriculum Textbook Adoption Committee, and I've been a member of that committee for going on 10 years. So I am pretty familiar with the process that is in place for changes or additions to our curriculum at the Guam Department of Education. First off, I'd like to say that the Guam Federation of Teachers is not disputing the need for a curriculum that may address financial concerns that our people are facing today. What is in dispute is having legislature mandate what the Department of Education will be instructing students on. And like Mr. Malay has said, there is a mechanism in place for something like this to happen. Excuse me, I'm a little nervous.
Don't be nervous.
Okay, and just quick review of the legislation that's being proposed, it is stated that, there are currently states that do have this legislation, and it was stated in the bill, I believe. Let me just make sure I'm doing this correctly. I don't want to misspeak. I believe starting in line 20 on page 2, legislature in Guahan finds that Oklahoma, California, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and South Carolina have adopted financial education legislation last year. I did go on to the National Association of Legislatures website and looked at the financial legislation that is in place or has been proposed. I know, like for the state of California, legislation was actually introduced in 2011 and passed by the governor in 2013 that does not mandate a course curriculum, but that the curriculum would be embedded or integrated into current courses such as math, health, etc. And that was not adopted in 2014. What was adopted by these said states in 2014 was the declaration of April 2014 as the Financial Awareness Month. As for other legislation that these states had proposed, I could go through the listing, citing the actual legislation themselves. Florida, for example, had HB 367, which died in committee May 2nd, 2014, which was to identify standards for financial management, but they did go ahead and declare April 2014 financial awareness. And I can go on with every single one of these, but all this information is available on that website that I did cite. So, like I said, we do agree that some sort of financial awareness should be given to the students. We do have courses that are available as electives for students to take if they so desire. It is not required by law for them to take these classes to graduate. And in saying that as well, there was a stipulation here that the student will be taking an exam prior to graduation. It does not state if that exam is meant or is required for them to graduation, just taken for them to prior to graduation. And the states that do have that requirement that the students must take a financial awareness assessment before graduation also have in place exit exams in the core classes as well. So DOE does not have exit exams. And to have this be, if I'm reading this correctly, some sort of exit exam for them to graduate, does not, like I said, the wording was not quite clear. So it just said prior to graduation. That could be read, in a couple of ways. So that's where the Guam Federation of Teachers stands, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, and thank you for the research. I believe we have Dr. Cruz, who will, if you can join them, Dr. Cruz.
Thank you, Doctor and Senator Narissa. I hope you don't mind me calling you Narissa so that we can differentiate the other Underwood. It's a pleasure really to be in front of the august body, Senator Ogden, Senator Nicholas, and Senator, my wife's cousin, Mary Torres. I find the establishing of the financial education curriculum, I think most apropos if it really is passed as a resolution urging that this really be looked at, and that at a certain time that really a report be brought back so that then we can really see which or how may we strengthen it, revise it, or modify it. I say that from the experience that we have in existence the joint board committees. And in my experience, I'm sorry to say, sometimes the Joint Board Committee actually just almost what I consider lackadaisically address that. I don't see a substantive evaluation of the pilot that really is going to be offered. And therefore, when that is pilot, and I offer really the one that's coming forward in regard to Thank you. In regard to, I guess, prenatal teaching at, I think either what school is it? It's either JFK. And the prenatal courses, I know dates all the way back to Ocean View, okay, when it was just a Southern high school, okay. And I asked in the research, can we see, what was the assessment, and how? And I told Mr. Fernandez, who was offering that, I said, because he's in employment, I said, have you searched that and really consulted with your colleagues so that we can see how we can change it, if not really offer it for the 3 regions in the area? And we say that in the 3 regions, when we offer the opportunity, that opportunity hopefully would be present, but we insist that be evaluated for its substantive, kind of impact to our students. I consider that actually everything that we do should be financially, financially addressed, okay? Because in our capitalistic world, money talks, and it's really what moves our community, and therefore, I think it is right of the legislature to ask how substantive has it really contributed. But I think the proposed title to establish a financial education committee, I think, is not to establish it, but to really actually insist on a report to be given to the legislature in 1 year. And then, because then to address those areas that are being asked. And you use this as the design to say, okay, so when we want to evaluate it, we want this to address, how is it really preparing our students to address retirement? I say that because I personally work for the government of Guam. I never thought of retirement. And there are alternatives to increase the government of Guam to retirement as opposed to just really staying in the government of Guam retirement system. There is a system there, but even the retirement, I was charting the retirement system. I said, have you at least have we gathered together, because now that I'm retired, I'm really very much interested in really what we call health dimensions of my retirement. It's one of those things that it looks as if once I work, I think I'll be there forever. But now that I'm, I guess I won't hesitate to say now that I'm 68. It really the dusk of my life is getting just as important as the dawn of my life. And if we don't address those 2 spectrum, the in between is going to be still the happy-go-lucky thing, which is fine, huh? I like that. I didn't say I didn't enjoy it, but as I reach those certain stages, the 2 major stages, I think it's important to address it. The first part is really the dawn is really to help the parents who are working, help them address that so that they themselves can assist in their retirement. And the dusk is really for the future. So the dusk is for the future, the dawn is really for the present, but both of them actually handle both the present and the future. And let's see the assessment. Let's see those pointers that are being raised, and I'd say that will give all of these other things. I remember taking it in the would you believe in my doctoral program? I took it in the business school, because one of the other things again that this does not seem to address is really to say, look at the other programs or the other majors and the other departments of the University of Guam, and see whether you can have it really as your elective when you graduate. Those electives have got to be more appreciated every day, and I'd like to charge it under your leadership and Senator Nicholas, that it really be really what we call the addressing of the dawn and the addressing of the dusk of one's life. And the in-between, like I said, is go-lucky, that's we'll use and possibly waste money, but sometimes, it seems to be a waste, but it really is really as part of growing up. Growing up, there's a lot of ways. I know I've heard people say, what energy is lost in youth when somebody gets older. But then I say, well, I with that thing, I said, how about, like I said, not to be repetitive, how about really addressing the dawn of life and the dusk of life? And both sides are very important, But both sides, at the beginning of retirement, the other is really what we call the use of the retirement. So that's my major contribution, and I hope that I make some sense out of that. But I feel that it is important, and I do say that I do agree that we do have a system. But I think we can, Senator Underwood, and you have been there. I think we need to kind of like just say, look, maybe I'll call for a what do you call that thing where we have just an open discussion, and so that you can flush out. We can flush out really dimensions that may not be there, and other people can really be present in regard to this. Because I don't see a private sector kind of like trying to assist and maybe help cement that, because the private sector is really very important as the private sector grows in this regard, and even the military, because even the military is opening that up for discussion and allowing its employees to kind of like address that instead of really depending on government.
Mm-hmm.
I like the notion or the freshness of saying we shouldn't depend on government, even though we are the government. And we should really always be mindful that we are the government. Government is just not, old grandpa on the side or old grandma on the side that just, when they squawk, we just say, it's only them. So I think, so I contribute that as my area of saying, let's dawn it and let's dusk it. And in between, let's enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cruz, and thank you for taking that time to share your bits of wisdom with us. If you can just stay there until I want to acknowledge Senator Jim Espaldonio. You can be a doctor too. Yes. Doctor of Law, that's right, there you go. So thank you for joining us. So, I have to apologize to the good senator who was the sponsor of the bill. Before I had called you up, he really should have been given the opportunity to explain the bill. So I would like to yield to Senator San Nicolas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Bill 47-33 is an act to establish financial education curriculum within the Department of Education. And the reason why I introduced this bill is it's actually very dear to me from two aspects of my life. The first is I'm a product of the Guam public school system. I went to public school. I can attest that my education is all public school. And with the exception of a few years that I went to Father Duenas. But the majority of it is all from public school teachings. My family are all public school professionals. And so I know what a public school student comes out of the system knowing and not knowing. In my profession, prior to becoming a senator, I was a financial advisor for 6 years. And I learned the financial industry. I learned how money works. I was an assistant vice president at the Bank of Guam. And I can tell you right now that we have an incredible disconnect between everything there is to know about managing your money properly and making smart financial decisions, and everything that's being taught in our public schools with respect to those particular topics. Now, right now we do have subjects that touch on it, but a student who graduates from a public school system, being a graduate from a public school system, does not have anywhere near the financial education skills they need in order to make sound financial decisions when they become adults, when they enter the workforce. Even when they're going to college and potentially taking out student loans or getting credit cards for the first time. And so what I wanted to do was craft a way for us to address that massive shortfall that we have, but do it also in a way that's mindful of the fact that the professionals in the teaching profession and in the administration and in the board are going to be the ones who will know how to move it out the most effectively. So the way this bill is crafted is it outlines the topics that are important for us to make sure we cover and we assess. And those topics are understanding interest, credit card debt, and online commerce, the rights and responsibilities of renting or buying a home, saving and investing, planning for retirement, bankruptcy, banking and financial services, balancing a checkbook, understanding loans and borrowing money, including predatory lending and payday loans, understanding insurance, identity fraud and theft, charitable giving, understanding the financial impact and consequences of gambling, earning an income and understanding state and federal taxes. Now, all of these topics are topics that we all are guaranteed to encounter in the real world as working adults. And unfortunately, all of us have to learn about these things pretty much on our own when we actually get out into the real world and start figuring these things out. And the sad part is that oftentimes decisions are made based on being with the decision maker being unaware of what the information is or the facts are, and they're taking it directly from a one channel source, like a salesperson or an advertisement that they see, and they're making a decision based on those things without fully understanding how that all is going to play out for their long-term financial realities. So I want our people to be able to understand these things and to be able to make informed decisions when it comes to managing their own money. And once we clear that hurdle, I really think we're going to solve a lot of the financial problems that we have here on this island. Because whether it's talking about it at the big level in terms of large $800 million government budgets, or talking about it at the family level, trying to make ends meet to be able to pay your bills and not get a bad credit score, all those things, if we're all able to kind of understand that in a general sense, is going to be very, very good for our community. So I crafted this bill to make sure that we identify the topics that are important, and we teach and we assess those topics. So we did put a provision in there for a test at the end of prior to graduation, but I didn't want to make it a graduation requirement in that you have to pass the test to graduate. What I did want it to be is a way for us to assess every single student and whether or not they're grasping these topics. So if we provide the exam before they graduate and they're all scoring a 30%, we know that we need to improve somehow within the department our ability to get the students to learn these topics better. And maybe we can target getting the assessment up to a 70%. But it's just for us to be able to gauge, do they know it or do they not know it? So the test wasn't going to be a graduation requirement. As far as the curriculum mandate is concerned, we weren't going to require a new class, for example, or even a new subject in particular. We did give the board all the latitude to be able to figure out how to implement and establish this program. So we're not setting new graduation requirements. We're not setting new requirements for a new class or anything like that. And we're not telling the board how to implement it. All we're saying is the board is authorized. We will assess it at the end of their school career prior to graduation, and we need to cover these 14 topics. However we go about doing it is up for the school board and the administration professionals and the teachers to be able to figure out what's the best way for us to teach this to our kids so that they can fully grasp the topics. And that's the whole objective of the bill. From what I gathered in the testimony was that there isn't necessarily any objection to us trying to meet this goal. What I'm hearing is that there is just, I don't want to say the word turf, but there's a certain way of going about doing these kind of things, and you guys don't want legislation to tell you guys how to do it. You guys want to be able to just craft it on your own. And I'm okay with that, just as long as we have something. For me, my concern is we have nothing. We do have some subjects like applied mathematics. I know that was here. That was mentioned, applied mathematics 1 and 2 and consumer math. But I don't think you necessarily have to take these classes. I remember I took consumer math because it was just an option for me to be able to take in high school. And then, when we teach these things in the class, I took consumer math, right? And I remember doing the assignments that had to do with some of these subject areas like banking and buying a car or those kind of things. But it was just like an assignment. It wasn't, I didn't realize that I was going to need these kind of things in the future. And I also didn't take the subject matter seriously to the point where I was thinking, okay, I'm going to be assessed on this prior to graduation. And so if we can get a better handle on how all these different pieces come together and assess it in a way where we're able to say, okay, you know what, our graduating students, they are pretty much on par with all of these financial education lessons, and they're entering the workforce knowing how to manage their money, then we can be comfortable with that. But if there's a deficiency, that'll be great for us to know also, And the reason why, Madam Chair, I really wanted to move this bill out was having been in the financial industry as a financial advisor, I can tell you that there is a serious need in our community for us to fill these gaps. And the only way that I can see us filling these gaps is in our school system. We can't mandate classes for adults, But when I was a financial advisor, I would talk to people, Dr. Cruz, I would talk to people considering retirement, in their 50s or 40s. Very concerned because they don't have enough. One of the things we're talking about right now in Vice Speaker Cruz committee is a hybrid retirement bill to try and rescue people who made poor retirement choices. So these kind of things, when we don't cover it at the dawn of their life in the beginning, it turns out to become a problem at the dusk of their life at the end. And so I really want us to try and figure out a way to be able to say, you know what, this is an issue, and this is something that needs to be addressed, not just on Guam, but across the nation, and we're going to get in front of it here on Guam. And so whether it's a bill or something you guys adopt, it really doesn't matter to me, but we need to do something. And so I'll work with our chair and the committee to figure out what that something is, and if it's not this bill, then I would look forward to guidance from you guys to let me know what it is going to be and what our timeline is going to be to move it forward. By the way, the timeline for this bill was to implement it not this school year, but even this school year after. So a full year and a half of lead time to try and figure out how to craft it. Again, I'll work with the chair, but I will just forewarn you guys, I'm going to be pretty aggressive about this one because it's something that I really, really think we need a need that we need to fill. And if the only issue is the channels by which we go about implementing this, then we'll go through. I'll jump through whatever hoops I need to jump through in order to get something like this implemented. But if I could get a commitment from you folks, because we have the board, the admin, and the teachers here, if I could just get a commitment that we're going to have something actionable by a certain date, then I can let this sit in committee up until that date, and we can move forward with whatever it is that you guys are able to work out.
Yes. Senator Torres, please.
No, they don't currently exist as a condition of graduation, but with our new comprehensive assessment system that we're implementing this school year, actually in late April, early May, we'll be able to have competency measurements for our students prior to them exiting the school. It'll focus primarily on English language arts and mathematics for the implementation, as well as career readiness skills through like a work keys equivalent measurement to say that, okay, here's where you're testing at, and here are the professions that are equivalent to your testing capacity. So it'll have a career assessment component with it. The assessment ACT Aspire translates into the ACT college entrance exam as well. So as early as the third grade, they will say, if you continue on your current trend, this is what you will score for your ACT college entrance exam. So we'll be able to track them from third grade all the way up through 10th grade.
I was just trying to find a happy area between what offer in mathematics and some objectives of those skill sets and areas that we're interested in this whole process. I was thinking about assessments that incorporate those. What are really life skills?
Yeah. No, and I think quite frankly, I do think there is room to improve what's currently existing. I think we also could probably learn from some previous experiences that there's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all approach that's going to work for our students. I think we all have seen that happen and maybe not go as anticipated. So it really, collaboratively, I think what your intention is fantastic. I mean, I took courses where I did income tax when I was in school, and now I pay someone to do it for me because it's just gotten so complicated. But I think they're very practical, real-life skills, and I think there are ways to marry, not with one but with two R's, the intent with what exists, through the input from our on the ground level experts to say, hey, look, you know what, this makes sense and it fits here, and we just need to make some modifications to what we're currently doing. So I think there's a way to do it. I don't think you'll have pushback if we use what's been existing, and perhaps we need to improve that function as well. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's about the students and what's going to benefit them, and that's what I think we can all agree upon. So.
Senator Esposito.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sorry I missed your testimony, but after reading the letter from the superintendent, I imagine that it kind of went down the same lines as what he expressed. And I do appreciate what the good Senator St. is trying to achieve here, because I believe these skills are important. In fact, looking back, I wish somebody would have taught me about credit before I took out my first credit card out of college and got myself into trouble there for a little while. And it was a big effort to climb out of that hole, as little as that credit limit was, and for a young man. But that being said, on the more practical side, you've just entered into, or we've just adapted the core curriculum, right? It's a whole new change of what we're teaching. Do you think that something like this would at this time impede or interfere with the implementation of what you're trying to do with the core curriculum?
I don't think we're ready to get going by the opening of the new school year. I think it's going to take a little time to revisit what's currently in place and how it's going to fit into structures that already exist. So, in terms of impeding with our implementation of the Common Core, I don't see that as a struggle, as long as we can do it through the collaborative effort of our joint board union curriculum committee. So.
Okay, so it may, well then, I guess that leads kind of into the next question. It does have in here that this, in essence, takes effect not this coming school year, but the school year following. Is that enough time to be able to sit down with all the concerned parties in this, that you would, to be able to iron it out?
And it could very well be enough time, but I would be foolish to say absolutely that's going to get done by that time until I sit down and get the input from the key stakeholders that are going to be responsible for reworking that and seeing what may not be considered through either the legislation or our written testimony. Very important to have those discussions, and I would be putting the cart before the horse to say that, yep, that's a good timeline. I would really depend on the plumber to do the plumbing and let them give me that guidance.
That's right. So in terms of what Dr. Cruz basically asked for is perhaps more roundtable discussions to really give it a lot more, I guess, meat in terms of, being able to apply it into the curriculum and whatnot. And I would imagine that's essentially what you're saying too at this point, that we should probably, again, and I go down this road all the time, because normally for the process, I think we all understand, once it has a public hearing, it's ready to hit the floor, or for the most part, and so again, I bring this up just to make sure that we, as senators, are aware that that is kind of like subliminally, actually not even subliminal, but patently coming out and saying, yeah, we need a little more time to work this out, to really take a look where we're at, see how we can incorporate it and work and massage it in, knowing full well that these are important skills that probably our young people should be taught. Am I at least correct in that assessment?
Yeah, I think you're fair enough with your assessment, and I think just one of the things that we like to do is to be able. Curriculum changes all the time, and when it's mandated, it becomes a lot more difficult to adapt and to change it. And so one of the things that has been established in the Department of Education is that joint committee. Right. To continually review, improve, update, modify, change, include, take out what needs to be taken out. But when it's mandated, it's a little bit more difficult to do, and we recognize that. So that's why we have these joint committees that are established, right? So that they can make those changes and keep it fluid and keep it current and keep it up to date.
Right, and I would imagine one of the challenges you would have is because there are only so many hours in a day in which students are actually in school, and there are certain subject matters that definitely need to be met, especially in terms of graduation requirements and college requirements. That's probably one of the challenges you'll have to face, of how to integrate these topics into the subject matter that you're already have in mind that you need to put on the table.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. With the requirements that are already established, they are established in a way that will give our students the best opportunity to get into college by meeting the college requirements, whether it be here locally or somewhere else. We try to take what's the most common requirements in terms of number of years in math and science and English and social studies and other type of courses to get our students on track. And so when we tinker with that, it could adversely impact our students' ability to apply for college, or it could adversely impact their ability to take elective courses that might be of interest to them, taking an extra band class or an extra art class or an extra foreign language or whatever the case might be. When we tinker with that too much, it has a bigger impact and effect on our high school and on both our middle and high schools in particular.
Okay, I appreciate that. On the flip side of that, though, I would imagine that you would then have to identify the persons who will be required to teach these subjects. And as much as respect as we all have for teachers, everybody has their own strengths. And again, everybody has their own weaknesses. And perhaps not everybody would be able to teach this kind of curriculum. So you would probably have to vet that out as well as to who would have that capability.
Yeah, we would have to establish the bandwidth that we already have with our current workforce. The capacity that they have to meet these type of requirements. Moving forward in a calculated and a very specific manner gives us that opportunity to evaluate just exactly who we have, who will be able to meet the needs to deliver this at each of our school sites, or if we have more at one school site and not another. I mean, it's going to take a little bit more of an evaluation. You're right, absolutely.
Okay, and I appreciate that, Madam Chair. Thank you. I just wanted to kind of like get a gauge, and like I said, I know this is new ground that we're re-breaking, because I believe it was part of the law or part of policy in the past, and for some reason it disappeared, and now we're trying to get it back in. And I do believe there's some valuable lessons to be learned from this topic matter. But again, understanding full well the challenges that the Department of Education goes through, just trying to get our students up to par, that this might require a little more conversation amongst all of us. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Espaldon. Senator Uggan. Okay. Well, I thank you for your testimony, but I do have a question. And when you listed all the topics here that were already subjects that covered financial education, I am wondering whether you can indicate the grade levels. Are these all in the secondary high school? And so basically, when we're talking about ensuring that students have, learned this, it's not just a one-time deal, right? So I am sure that there are certain, these concepts are already being introduced in some of the the subject matters, subject courses, or subjects within the grade level, the lower grade levels, the elementary grade levels.
I can assure you that even as recently as last night in the 3rd grade, I know that they are teaching mathematical concepts as it relates to money, because I stayed up 30 minutes beyond his bedtime to help him finish his math homework last night for the 3rd grade.
Right. Okay, so what would be real helpful? This is as essential, right? What Senator San Nicolas is introducing here is as essential as our health and wellness program is for our students. It's that important. And so, Mr. Millet, what I'm wondering is whether you would be able to go back, and I know we have a new, the Common Core standards that are in place, and the standards actually specify what it is that we expect our students to know and to be able to do within each grade level, correct, in every content area. And the curriculum is what specifies how we will achieve those standards. So, if you can go back and work with the committee, the textbook curriculum committee, and if you can develop a matrix, if you take a look at the requirements of the bill, all of these from 1 to, I think, 13, all of what is required here, that I know our curriculum division or even the teachers would say, of course, we teach this not only in the high school, but this is where we begin. And you develop a matrix that would show those different areas, the different requirements here, and indicate the grade and the content, right? I can work with you on that matrix. That would show where it is covered. And then from there, we can come back and take a look at, where the gaps might be. But it's in the delivery of those topics, the delivery of the concepts that would really make a difference, where it is introduced and then how it is reinforced through the different courses. I mean, you all know that.
Yeah, we call that vertical alignment, so
yeah,
we do
there
that
you
already.
Go.
Yeah.
Vertical and horizontal
problem.
alignment. Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
may I ask
Yes.
one more question?
Sure.
Dr. Cruz, may I ask a question of you? Hearing your testimony, may I just ask you, do you feel that a law like this impinges upon the board's authority?
No.
Okay.
It just kind of like oomps the board,
Okay.
because I think it's recognized in the community. I know I went a lot, Senator San Nicolas, in really saying, it's not going to be implemented kind of like in 15 school year, 15,
Right.
16, it's going to be really implemented, the following year. So that is really, to your credit, that recognizes the turnaround that we really have to recognize, because there's the turnaround of really the requirements for the students, the turnaround that we have, for the resources that we really have, especially the teachers.
Right.
Okay, and one of the dampening things that I have on the courses that we list. In my growing up, I see those courses as really lowering of expectations. When you think of light math, that's really for people who can handle math. When you think of this math, so it's I've grown to actually appreciate home economics, because I think it covers everything. All of these things, you better know how to do it, because that's why homemaking is people who is a homemaker is really a good homemaker. She knows how to get that $1, stretch it, and
That's right.
and do it. So so I laud you for allowing at least the 1 year dawning of this, so that we can say, well, in the dusk, we're going to do it.
I appreciate that answer, Doc.
I like the thing, you shall do it, and I feel that, you are the voice of the community.
Well, I appreciate that answer, Dr. Cruz, in that I just wanted to make sure that, again, and I'm sure you're speaking as your role as someone who is on the board, or who has been on the board all this time, that we're not trying to mandate it so strongly that regardless of what the board thinks this is what's going to happen. But I think you're right. I think the approach is to be able to say, this is one of those policy calls that the board probably should push forward because it is a good idea. Now it's a matter, my concern is how do we actually implement it well, and get it done. And if it requires a little time, it requires a little massage, and we all can understand that because there are a lot of moving parts to getting this in place, and I can appreciate that as well. So thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Melissa.
Thank you, Senator Underwood. First off, I'd like to say that in the written testimony that was submitted by the Guam Federation of Teachers, I want to just mention that, thank you to Senator Siniclas for saying that whether it's through legislation or
Yes.
through any other means, this does need to be addressed. And the GFT does have a recommendation towards the end of the letter that instead of creating a law, that the issue was addressed in the form of a letter of memorandum to the Chairman of the Board of Education and the Superintendent of Education for appropriate action on the proposed subject curriculum. And I would also like, coming from boots on the ground, my opinion, and I've been involved in a lot of curricular changes, initiatives with the Department of Education. I've seen things come and go, but everything that does come forward needs to be data-driven. And if we are going to be looking at the needs, if this is to address the needs of our students, I think first and foremost to get any discussion started regarding this is we need to do some sort of assessment, a skills assessment with the kids right now, just to see what the needs really are, going from maybe even start in the primary grades, the elementary grades, all the way up to high school, to see exactly where do we need to drive this curriculum and what holes and gaps do we need to fill. So I think first and foremost that does need to be done, and I don't think it's reinventing the wheel. There are assessments out there already in place that we just need to kind of customize to our culture here on Guam and the culture of our public school students.
Okay. Thank you very much. Senator Nicholas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I love all of it. I think this is great dialogue, and again, for me, the objective is just to be able to, in the end, make sure our students are learning what they need to know for them to be able to be productive citizens in our community. So what I'm going to ask, Madam Chair, if you'll indulge me, is if you can just hold this in your committee, and if you can indulge me with, scheduling us some roundtables going forward at this point.
Yes.
And then that way we can roadmap how we're going to eventually come up with something that's going to achieve what was intended in Bill 47. But for now, we'll just figure out where we're
Thank
going to
you.
go, and I'll follow your lead on it.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Well, I thank you very much, Senator Nicholas, for the flexibility, and also to all of you, Mr. Malay, Dr. Cruz, thank you, and also Melissa, thank you very much.
It was a pleasure.
You're not nervous anymore.
Yeah. Did we hear Francis already?
Okay, we now want to address, let me just, the confirmation for the appointment of Mr. Francis G. Tovis to the Guam Academy Charter Schools Council as the accounting finance representative. And so we have Francis Tovis. Please come up and let me see. That's all we have. Okay. 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 Okay, so Mr. Tovis, if you could please turn on the mic and state your name.
My name is Francis Patrick G. Tovis. Okay. I come here today as an appointee for the Charter School Council, the finance representative, and I wanted to give a little background because Senator Uggan, if you remember, at one Barrigada procession, Rosa Palomo was asking me about being on the council, and in fact you were just next to me. And so that's how it started. She inquired, and I said, yeah, that would be something that I would be interested on. And then as recently as last year, I was telling a good friend of mine and my classmate, the Vice Mayor of Agate, who had just recently passed, that the appointment was coming up, and said I wasn't too sure about it, and he actually urged me to continue on and not turn it down, and that's kind of how Dingo was. But I come here, most of the time my family's going, can we hold back and not let's kind of focus on our business and get our business profitable and that kind of thing. Since I stay in the private sector, and I've been there for quite a while, and but I have family that have served in different capacities and in this government and in our government, and so when asked whether or not I was hesitant, I am still willing to serve, and that is it.
Okay, I'll yield to my colleagues. Do you have any questions? Comments? Yes. Okay. Senator San Nicolas.
Hi, Frank. You're my neighbor, and I never knew you had this long resume.
Well,
always neat to find out something new about people. The position that you're going to be assuming is for the accounting and finance representative of the Guam Academy Charter Schools Council.
yes.
Yeah. So I just wanted to ask.
My background?
Oh no. One of the things that has always been brought to everybody's attention, especially up here, is how the charter school's budget doesn't include amounts for the school lunches.
Okay.
I remember that was an issue that was discussed back in one of the budget cycles, and so I was hoping, if you assume the position, I fully support your nomination. If you can just put a bug in your ear to be able to get back to us before the next budget cycle, what the status is on the school lunch program at the charter school, and whether or not that's included in the budget allotments that they're provided with. I remember that was a concern, but if not in the last budget, then the budget before that, and I just wanted to see if we can get a follow-up.
It should just be a notation in their budget, but on a lump sum budget, it should be included.
I don't think it was itemized in the Guam legislature's appropriation.
But in the miscellaneous provisions, there should be something in there. But
There was not.
apparently, there's an oversight in our.
Yeah, so if you can help
our
us get
part.
a handle on that figure and what the amount may be, and then whether or not that amount is factored into the 5,500 per pupil that's currently part of their calculation.
Okay.
Yeah, because I just wanted to get a better understanding of what the status was on that.
Okay.
But that was really it from me. Thank you,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Nicholas. Senator Torres, do you have? Senator Espo?
I just, Mr. Torres, are you presently serving on the charter school board or not?
I am not.
You are not. But you've had experience in other government boards,
The Board of Education.
Board of Education? Because I noticed that the appointment is for the position of accounting / finance representative.
Yes.
I imagine in the composition of boards, they have different talents and expertise where you can
Mhm.
balance the discussion and provide for good direction, good
Yes.
decisions, and balanced decision amongst representatives that serve on the board. But clearly in accepting the appointment, you understand that you're filling a position within the board that is contemplated that you have expertise and knowledge to lend to the composition of the board, correct?
Yes.
And do you feel that this specific position to which you're being appointed is suitable, given your background and your education and your expertise?
Yes, I currently am the treasurer for the Young Men's League of Guam. It comprises of well over $1 million of assets, financial assets, and so the Young Men's League of Guam. Well, we have about $1 million plus in fixed and financial assets.
And the reason I asked is, we understand that the charter schools are going
Yes.
concerns in addition to the steady management and consistent management is the financial picture and the needs. And so to that, I just wanted to hear from you that given that you're being appointed in the capacity of a accounting and finance representative, that you feel comfortable in the responsibility and the expectations that are being placed on you as a member with that background and expertise to lend.
Well, I'm a math major, an engineer, and with a finance background, because both in formal education and I've been a licensed broker and registered representative to sell securities at one time in my life. And I learned it not to sell securities. I learned it to learn finance. And my company that I'm the president of is Tovis Development and Investments, and I own and operate my own real estate apartment rental program, and I do my own, manage my own construction, which I have done. I've managed construction for 30 years, so that's something not necessarily new. You know, when I first came into government in 1994 on Guam, that was to handle the return of TIDSIN, SRF, and 3,000 acres of federal excess lands. And you know, normally you judge the wellness of a program as to how well it does. And you didn't have problems with the transition of SRF or the airport turning from NAS Sagana to the airport. And that was a transition between the ADA administration into the Gutierrez administration. So still able to work with both sides of the aisle, even though I was the treasurer for the GOP for over a decade. So yes, I've had some dabbling in finances.
I know you personally, and it was good to hear you.
Yes.
It was good to hear you affirm your confidence and your willingness to serve in this capacity, and that's what I wanted to hear, because you know we sometimes don't see it in the application, and I know that there are a lot of people who are very, very concerned with the charter school system right now. The ones that are most concerned are the students that really believe in it, and so you know we would like to see it thrive, and that's why I asked those questions.
Right.
But I appreciate your candor, and I think it was good for you to discuss that, because I think that it does lend a level of confidence and surety to those people who might not otherwise have known about you or what you might be able to contribute. But there's also something very admirable about a citizen who is willing to step up and serve, you know, serve the government in a board capacity, because it is a great deal of responsibility, and I know you could be enjoying all the things that you do in your life, but you know it's good that you offer this kind of service. So thank you for answering that question. I didn't mean to be rude. I just wanted to hear it from your mouth.
Actually, I don't really announce that those kind of details. It's not normal for my to announce that kind of information.
You're humble. Thank you, Senator Torres. Senator Espaldon. Okay, so I just have a couple of questions.
Sure.
You have had experience as a member of the Guam Education Board,
Yes.
Policy Board, and so I'm just wondering, based on that experience and what you've learned from your experience there, how would that be? How would you apply that to being a member of the Guam Academy Charter School Council?
You know, I have a lot of respect for boards and commissions, because serving on them is a difficult task. However, it has been, unfortunately, my experience that at times some of the members tend to reach in terms of their authority as board members, and that we tend to, and without trying to find a better word for it, micromanage the efforts of the executive that's in charge. And it's not just the Board of Education. It happens in many boards, and it depends on the composition of that board. But that's been the most difficult and frustrating part of it, because, you know, I come from the private sector, and if you're on the board and you don't like that executive once, twice, and you may not get to a third time, you know, that you disapprove a plan of action, you've already defanged that executive, and it's just a matter of time. And so I would I wouldn't go that far to disapprove a plan of action because every executive ought to have the chance to try and put his best foot forward, and that if you give him that latitude and he fails, then he fails with his ideas and all on his shoulders, and not, you can't go blame it on somebody else. And but it's been my experience that a lot of times well-meaning board members tend to reach more into what authority they don't have, and since their authority comes as a board and not as individual members, it's the restraint that board members need to know. You don't have to be an expert in everything, but you got to hold the executive accountable. I mean, my side's finance, I can easily see whether or not they're going to provide that that oversight and follow through into those particular objectives.
Okay. So what would be your two priorities as a member of the council?
The first is to get our guys, our board to relax and not try and reach and micromanage, and be clear on what you want. We have to, and not delving into any one particular item. I find that a lot of times we're not clear. We give too many different activities or events that we want the executive to accomplish, and then wonder why not all of them were accomplished. And you know, there are limits within this government that we can do, and we ought to remember what some of those limits are. You know, we can't always do certain things, and when it's appropriate, I think those things should be, we should affirm some of those things. It's like Senator San Nicolas's bill. I take a different standpoint on that, in that it's nice to say we're going to collaborate and we're going to do all these nice things, but and say we're going to take 18 months to come up with a plan. It's just my experience that the 18 months will pass and we'll still not have a plan, and we won't have any execution of that plan. I'd rather just, as Dr. Cruz has said, just pound it forward a little bit, and in 6 months, if something doesn't come up and they haven't moved forward, have a roundtable discussion and try and move it a little further along. And you know, sometimes you have to you kind of egg it on a little bit, and you know, you have to overcome that little momentum that, you know, there's some anchors that people are dropping on the way over, so you got to try and move things along. Sometimes not everybody's on the same sheet of music, and they're that boat is kind of overweight.
Sounds like a little bit of management.
Yes. but I'd like management to work on it. It's something they need to do, but sometimes you have to tell management it's time to get going. We gotta, you know. Okay. But it's okay, you know. We can be firm, just like we are with our kids. We don't always have to, you know. It's not as. Yes, we live in a democracy, but once you get somebody in charge, they have to make things happen.
Right.
And so I'm just suggesting
you facilitate it.
Yes.
Without micromanagement.
That's right.
Okay. Senator Esposito, did you have? I'm sorry. Okay. Well, I thank you, Mr. Tovis, for accepting the nomination. And we have 2 charter schools right now, and yes, indeed, there were challenges with Guam Academy. But I believe that you can contribute with the experience that you've had with the Guam Education Board and your expertise in finance and even your experience in being a member of our community. I thank you for because it is tough being a board member. And
Yes.
it does take not only a lot of your time, but energy and the concentration, on the matters at hand. So
Yes.
I thank you very much for that. Thank you for your testimony and for your presence and the public testimony this afternoon. The committee will continue to accept testimony until 5 p.m. Thursday, April 9th, 2015. Testimonies may be submitted to the Guam Legislature, 155 Hester Place, Hagatna, via email at cipo@guamlegislature.org or via fax at 671-969-0975. The public hearing is now adjourned. The time is 5:20. Thank you, everybody.